At the Adventurers Guild, people were concerned about the absence of Saint Weirdo for over half a year. The guildmaster hadn't heard anything from him either and wondered if he was on an expedition. Some speculated that maybe the church had locked him up and the clinic fees had risen since he disappeared. Meanwhile, Musou found himself on the 50th floor of the labyrinth with dwindling food supplies. He worried that if the next opponent wasn't the final boss, he might be in trouble. He even wondered if he'd turn into an undead if he died here. Musou decided to take a look at the spell tome he had found earlier. In it, he discovered a spell called Sanctuary Circle, which could purge dark magic and harm demons and ghosts within its boundaries. He entered the boss room and saw a powerful white creature, which he dubbed the King White, and suspected it might be the final boss. As he attempted to cast a healing spell on it, the King White interrupted his incantation. Ghosts emerged from the King White, and Musou used his purification spell to deal with them. The King White then used dark magic, and Musou decided to try out the Sanctuary Circle spell he had just learned. The spell damaged the King White but drained a significant amount of Musou's mana. To replenish his mana, he drank a mana potion. Concerned about running out of potions, he had an idea. He used the Sanctuary Circle spell again and pushed it towards the King White, managing to defeat it. Before its defeat, Musou caught a glimpse of the King White's true face, making him wonder if all the monsters and bosses he had fought were once humans like this one. Musou found the forbidden holy magic spell tome and a weapon that the King White had dropped. He knew he had to report this to the Pope. Suddenly, a gate appeared in front of him. When he approached it, the gate drained his mana and opened. Inside, he saw stairs leading down to another level. There, he encountered a sleeping dragon. Musou realized he couldn't defeat such a powerful monster. He also thought that dragons were intelligent creatures and might even be able to communicate. Musou used Sanctuary Circle on the sleeping dragon, hoping it would turn it back to its normal state instead of being undead. After replenishing his mana with magic potions, he cast the spell and it worked. The dragon transformed back to its true self. The dragon praised Musou for defeating him with a single attack and offered him all the treasure as a reward. Musou hesitated, wondering if it was a trap. The dragon assured him it wasn't and explained that once Musou collected the reward and the remaining magic stones, the labyrinth would disappear. He allowed Musou to choose how to proceed. Musou, feeling that the dragon wasn't a threat, asked about the purpose of the labyrinth. The dragon revealed that his kind was sealed where miasma gathered, and there was no hero who came to rescue them. He began to share more information with Musou. Musou couldn't believe that everything had actually happened. The dragon seemed to sense that Musou wasn't just after the treasure and rewarded him with his protection. He wanted to know Musou's name, believing that it would make him harder to kill. Musou introduced himself, and the dragon urged him to continue saving beings, including his brethren, as the challenges ahead would become even more formidable. With that, the dragon passed away, leaving Musou determined to fulfill his promise. Musou gained new titles and collected various items, including a staff and a necklace, before being teleported out of the labyrinth. Now, Musou had the title He Who Released the Seal and the ability to sense the presence of other dragons due to the Holy Dragon's blessing. Returning to Catalia, she was overjoyed to see him safe and gave him a warm hug. She had been worried since he had been gone for half a year, and Musou admitted he had thought he might not make it. However, their reunion was interrupted by a protest outside the church. Adventurers were demanding the release of Saint Weirdo. Among them, Musou spotted Master Broad, Gulgar, and Galba, all relieved to see him safe and sound. Musou couldn't help but wonder if everyone thought he was dead. The master assured him that he would inform those outside that Musou was safe. Curious about the commotion outside, Musou asked Broad and the others why they had come to the capital. As cheering sounds filled the air, Musou guessed that it must be quite lively in the city. He even speculated if there was a festival taking place. Broad, however, wasted no time in questioning Musou about where he had been all this time. Just as the conversation was getting started, Musou's hungry stomach decided to make its presence known with a loud growl. Musou enjoyed a hearty meal prepared by Gulgar and the master back at the guild. Then, he turned his attention to helping the people gathered there who couldn't afford medical care. Musou also engaged in some training with Broad, and it was a challenging session. The other adventurers witnessed this and started referring to Musou as the masochist zombie, believing that the urban legend about him might be true. Approaching Musou, the adventurers expressed their relief that he was safe and offered their assistance should he ever need it. After their heartfelt conversation, they left. Broad, still concerned about Musou, reminded him of the worry he had caused and emphasized that he should remember his own limitations. Gulgar playfully warned Broad not to be too harsh, fearing that Musou might decide not to return to Meritoni. Musou reassured them that he would visit again someday. Galba chimed in, suggesting that Musou bring one of his girlfriends along on his next visit. Musou entrusted Broad with delivering his letters to Nanela and Monica, which pleased him. Broad, ever curious, couldn't resist asking Musou about his romantic interests, but Galba intervened, noting that Broad wasn't the best at understanding people's feelings. With that, Broad and the others bid farewell, leaving Musou to report to the Pope. She expressed her relief that he had returned safely and explained that while she would have typically sent a rescue team sooner, voices of dissent and the appearance of dangerous creatures on the lower floors had complicated matters. Lucille understood the Pope's concerns and proceeded to explain why he had been absent for half a year. The Pope listened attentively, and Lucille assured her that he didn't expect her to believe he had defeated the 50th level Wraith. However, Lucille had another story to share, one that required the room to be vacated by the other priests. Some of them thought he might be mocking them, but the Pope instructed them to follow Lucille's request, and they left the room. Lucille then shared the astonishing tale of his encounter on the 50th floor. He spoke of the undead holy dragon he had encountered, which revealed a tragic tale of its cursed brethren sealed away in labyrinths by a malevolent deity. The dragon had prayed for their freedom and prophesied that the next hero wouldn't appear for another 40 years. Furthermore, it warned that even the future hero would struggle against the growing darkness in the world, making it impossible to defeat the newly born Demon King. Upon hearing this revelation, the Pope decided to keep it a secret, forbidding Catalia and Lumina from sharing it with anyone else. Lucille couldn't help but wonder why his level was still stuck at 1. The Pope, noticing his concern, asked him to check his stats, questioning if they looked like the stats of a level 1 adventurer to him. Lucille observed that his numbers had indeed gone up. Then, the Pope handed him the original text of Substance X as Lucille read it. He discovered that while Substance X could provide him with certain advantages, it made leveling up more challenging. Lucio found himself in a dilemma. He knew he should give up Substance X if he wanted to level up more quickly, but he couldn't easily part with such a useful cheat. The Pope expressed her gratitude for Lucille's remarkable accomplishments, especially conquering the labyrinth. She announced a grand celebration to mark the occasion. During the celebration, she recognized Lucille's achievements by promoting him to S-rank healer and granting him a rank equivalent to that of a bishop. This promotion came with the privilege to refuse orders from anyone except her. Finally, she asked Lucille if he would like to say a few words. Lucille felt a bit out of practice when it came to giving speeches, but he couldn't pass up this opportunity. He began by expressing his deep gratitude for the Pope's introduction, recognizing the honor in being promoted to an S-rank healer. Despite this, he remained humble, acknowledging that he was still a novice. His biggest accomplishment thus far was successfully navigating the labyrinth. He went on to mention that it had been 4 years since he became a healer, and he had witnessed how the church's authority was slowly eroding. Some might have questioned his sanity at this point, but Lucille was driven by a sense of justice. He explained that healers were often unfairly criticized, seen as money-grabbing charlatans. He asked those in attendance to consider how this mistrust had arisen. Lucille believed it was because the laws governing medical fees hadn't kept up with the changing times. With conviction, he declared his intention to establish new guidelines for medical treatment fees. By doing so, he hoped to prevent the abuse of the church's authority and, in turn, rebuild its reputation. Lucille called upon everyone present to join him in this mission to restore the church's authority. As he concluded his speech, Lucille couldn't help but reflect on his journey. Once a Salaryman in a different world, he had now embarked on a new path, one that held the promise of change and progress. This brings an end to our episode 12. If you enjoyed it, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe our channel. Keep supporting and see you soon.